hopefully you have gotten this letter. This is the official self jerk off letter that Donald Trump has written out to all of us about the COVID 19 stimulus check that we were all supposed to receive. For millions of Americans that are living throughout the country, they are still waiting for their checks throughout all of this. And we already are at 30 million plus people that have been unemployed. So I wanted to take a minute to kind of just break down this letter and point out all the fallacies and inaccuracies and just straight out lies that are in it too. Your economic impact payment has arrived. Our great country is experiencing an unprecedented public health and economic challenge as a result of the global coronavirus pandemic. Yeah, a problem that not only you ignored, but you also claimed was a hoax, then tried to downplay as long as possible, and then on top of that, are now basically holding funding hostage to the areas hardest hit. And there's still more to come. I live in Brooklyn. This is in literally one of the hottest zones of Brooklyn, where the infection rate is astronomical. I have friends that are literally about to be thrown out of their homes. I don't have to worry about that, at least at this point, but I know plenty of people that are going to be grossly affected by this, that are not going to be able to feed themselves, let alone their kids, let alone find a place to find shelter. So you want to talk about being able to help people. You had fired the pandemic response team 2 years ago, just cleared it out, and then months ago, almost a year ago actually, took out a bunch of the scientists that were responsible for overseeing what was going on with the diseases in China. And then if that wasn't enough, then you decided to start lying and obfuscating about the seriousness of the disease and are now calling for the United States to be reopened. That is the dumbest thing that you can do, because now we're going to experience a second wave that will be even deadlier than what we are at. And we've already surpassed 60,000 deaths and 1 million cases confirmed. And that's not including all the ones we don't know about because you haven't provided testing. Meanwhile, the two countries that actually have been able to provide testing for their citizenry, South Korea and Germany, have been really effective at trying to stop the virus. And they've done a really good job of it. Their rates are extremely low. And just as a side note, South Korea and the United States confirmed their first cases on the same day, January 31st. So there's that too. And yet South Korea's death rate is astronomically way lower than the United States, who, for the record, is number one in deaths. And then on top of that is also actually providing care for their citizens in terms of financial restitution, as well as providing universal health care for them. Our top priority is your health and safety. I refer you again to the points about how you haven't provided enough testing and also are calling for the states to reopen. Just to refer you, we have an example of a second wave actually hitting us in 1918 with the Spanish flu. Philadelphia had actually lifted their quarantine procedures for a parade for the veterans coming back from World War I. And literally within days, the hospitals were over flooded to the point where they couldn't receive any more people. People died in the streets. Like thousands of people died in the streets of Philadelphia because of that. So that's just one example. And just for the record, when you actually look at the numbers, the wave basically started off, then the quarantine moratorium started coming in, and then they were lifted, and then boom, it spiked right back up again, and then went down after everyone had basically been burned through. As we wage total war on this invisible enemy, we are also working around the clock to protect hardworking Americans like you from the consequences of the economic shutdown. A one-time stimulus check is not going to solve those problems, especially for single earners who only get $1,200, or for a couple that earns $2,400 and $500 for each kid. Literally, this stimulus check will last us, just as an example, 1 month. That between rent and bills, that's it. 1 month. And then screw what happens after that, I guess. We have no chance. We are fully committed to ensuring that you and your family have the support you need to get through this time. 1 month. How the hell are we supposed to survive? And again, just for perspective on this, the bills that were put through gave corporations hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks as well as stimulus money out of the $2.2 trillion bill. Hundreds of billions of dollars. Why does big oil need such a huge stimulus? These are corporations that literally have basically their own economies, budgets that are bigger than some small countries. So don't come up and tell me that they can't afford to actually take care of themselves. They literally have money tucked away all over the place. So they don't need the help. The workers need the help. The small businesses need the help, because without that infrastructure in place, you're not going to be able to support those large businesses. It's like having a million popsicle sticks holding up a giant concrete slab, right? Sure, if you take away one or two, the slab will be fine. There's no real problem there. But if you take away tens of thousands of them individually and they all go away, that concrete slab is going to collapse. And that's what we're on right now, popsicle sticks. So don't come up and tell me that you're doing your best to get through this. Please, if you really cared, you would actually emphasize taking care of the citizenry in terms of their medical insurance, testing, and in terms of protocol, as well as economic, I'm so mad right now, economic disenfranchisement. You would make sure that everyone is actually accommodated and not having to worry. On March 27, 2020, Congress passed with overwhelming bipartisan support the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities Act, the CARES Act. Yeah, very reminiscent of the Patriot Act in terms of how acronyms are used, but that's just me. Which I proudly signed into law. No, you were strong-armed into it. Please, give me a break. I want to thank the United States House of Representatives and the United States Senate for working so quickly with my administration to fast-track this $2.2 trillion stimulus bill in much-needed economic relief to the American people. This includes fast and direct economic assistance to you. Again, I refer you to the tens of millions of people that are still waiting on their stimulus checks, that are not able to e-file and don't have a direct deposit line. They're still waiting for those checks to be sent out and delivered to them. This is at the same time that you're trying to dismantle and privatize the United States Postal Service, which means that not only would it be more expensive for them to receive it, but simultaneously it would also be longer for them to get. Also, as a side note, since this is an election year, you're using that opportunity to try to stop the United States Postal Service from being a unionized and government agency to being a private service, in order to ensure that if the pandemic is not finished by November, to ensure people's safety, that they have the right to mail-in vote. And the more access people have to voting, the more likely they're going to vote out Republicans. The statistics are very clear on that. So you're trying to hamstring the USPS, along with Mitch McConnell, you scumbag, from being able to actually allow the citizenry to vote. So again, it's a clear ulterior motive, and you are trying to use this opportunity to supplant and usurp democracy. But I digress. I am pleased to notify you, as provided by the CARES Act, you are receiving an economic impact payment of $3,400 by direct deposit. We hope this payment provides meaningful support to you during this period. It's not nearly enough. Other countries are providing upwards to 80% of their base income to allow them to actually function. And even more than that, provide the care and the support needed to stay isolated to prevent the spread of the disease. Literally, that's the whole point. The government is supposed to be able to provide for the citizenry in a time of crisis. And part of what is responsible to do is to ensure that people stay in their homes and are not actively going out of their way to spread the disease. Even if you are asymptomatic, and even if you do not catch it, that does not reduce the possibility of you spreading the disease to another person. It is wholly irresponsible to only have a stimulus check for maybe 1 month of coverage. Now, in our case, we are in a 1-bedroom apartment that we've converted into a 2 in the middle of Brooklyn. It's not the biggest space. Like, this is my living room right here. You can see it's not very big. You can even see my kitchen right over here. Not the biggest space in the world. You're a single person and you have your own space, or you are rooming up. $1,200 is not nearly enough to cover your expenses. I know that because when I was single, even 10 years ago, $1,200 would not cover me for a month. And that was 10 years ago. Now imagine that in the millions all across the country. How the hell do you afford rent? How the hell do you afford food? There's my phone, sorry. How the hell do you afford being able to take care of your family? It still is not a long-term solution. It's a band-aid on a gaping, festering wound, and that has to be addressed. South Korea is able to take care of their citizens by monthly payments. Sweden, Finland, Germany, they all have monthly stipends that are going out to their citizens to ensure that they stay home and slow the spread. It's irresponsible to continue doing this and to have it set up in such a way that only 1 month of provisions, you have people that are going to try to go out to work and then from there spread it or contract it, and then that becomes a burden on our medical system. It deprives people who actually need care from real situations and real emergencies from being able to be attended to. And then that's not also counting the financial burden that comes from from having to go to the hospital. Right now, the average for a coronavirus visit, if you contract it, have to be hospitalized and then are sent out and released, if you survive, is about $70,000. So just keep that in mind. And now imagine that every single member of your family catches it, or you give it to somebody else without knowing. That eliminates whatever funds you may have and then puts you just completely in medical debt for the rest of your life. If you're even allowed to file for bankruptcy. Like that's how screwed up this is. So a 1 month stimulus check is just absolutely insane. It's not nearly close enough. To me, it just sounds like the Republicans just going up and saying, yeah, we did something. Now get off our back so that we can go back to robbing you blind. Please. Every citizen should take tremendous pride in the selflessness, courage, and compassion of our people. America's drive, determination, innovation, and sheer willpower have conquered every previous challenge, and they will conquer this one too. Just as we have before, America will triumph yet again and rise to new heights of greatness. We will do this together as one nation stronger than ever before. Except that you're setting up an entire system that is not allowing that to happen. You are literally putting people intentionally between a rock and a hard place while simultaneously spreading complete disinformation about the virus to the point of saying that we should inject bleach into ourselves. The day that you said that, Trump, the day you said that, 30 people tried doing it here in New York City alone, at least. Who knows how many hundreds more all across the country, thousands more. And then you have the gall to say that it is just sarcasm. You are the president. People take what you say seriously. Whatever damage those people have done to themselves is on you. You're responsible for that because people just don't know, and you're providing so much disinformation about this. And now you're going to say that this is some sort of concocted Chinese disease to try to hit us, as in like this was meant to be a pandemic released by the Chinese in some way. Please. They got hit harder than us initially. We don't even know the confirmed numbers of how many people are affected. The only reason we're number one right now is because we don't even know how many people we have affected. But what we can confirm, which we have done at least some progress on, is that we have over 1 million confirmed cases and at least 60,000 deaths in the first 2 active months alone. So congratulations, this was not like the flu. You've done so much damage by the end of your tenure in your first term, and you have the gall to send this letter to jack yourself off. Congratulations, you've killed people. You didn't act when you needed to act. You lied. You obfuscated. You did your best to ensure that people were going to just align with you. And all you did in the end was create a dynamic where a pandemic is exposing virtually every single problem with our country in one shot. Because of your greed, your stupidity, your disillusionment, and then finally, your inability to take responsibility. Congratulations, Donnie.